What's up, party people? My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. I think this is going to be episode number 2 today. I've got a very interesting guest that I'll be speaking with. His name is Adam Zek. He's the CEO and co-founder of My Standard. It's a Web3 employment and talent acquisition platform. Really excited to dig into it. I'm going to bring him on stage. Adam, how you doing, bud?
Hey, thanks for having me, Sunny. Looking great. Feeling good here and excited to talk to you.
Great. Cool. So why don't you kick us off? Just maybe give us, I don't know what they call it, the elevator pitch, a paragraph or two on My Standard. What are you guys up to there? And then we'll kind of come back to that, near the end of the interview and talk more about it. But I'd like to kick off
Of course.
right there.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, My Standard aims to change who owns the data. Today, we give up all of our data and custody and value of that data to somebody else. Usually it's Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google. It's somebody in the middle. And when there's somebody in the middle, they create all sorts of profit opportunities for them, but it's a really inefficient market for people and companies to connect because there's this middleman who holds all the data and decides what to do with it, who gets to see it, how much it costs to access it. It kind of needed to exist. Like Web 2 and the way that it's structured today is, I think, a nice evolutionary and is a natural evolutionary progression of how the internet needed to come to exist to what we see today and how we interact with it today. But we kind of have the technology and the means now to take that data back and have the data owner realize the data and the value of their data. This is not necessarily a new concept, but the way we're going about it is entirely different. We're going about it by actually creating a self-custody architecture where you are the key holder to your data. Nobody can see it, touch it, access it without you deciding who gets to see it. And after you decide to share it, you get paid for sharing your data, and the organization you're sharing your data with instantly gets to see who you are. And our first use case comes from my career, which is talent acquisition, of helping companies and people connect fairly without employer side bias, stopping that person from their, connecting with a company about their dream job, and they essentially get paid to apply to the job and interact with that employer. This money's being spent already, but it's going to LinkedIn, $19 billion a year, and the other $180 billion of talent acquisition spend that happens every year does not see never a dime of it doesn't come to the data owner. And we believe we can flip that entire model around, create a capital efficient recruiting market, and then after that, start approaching other use cases and markets that have similar issues to talent acquisition.
I mean, this would be the point where I normally switch gears into the whole but I gotta ask you a couple questions. So, or at least, So one thing that is, I was thinking about this morning too, is like how do you break the network effects with something like LinkedIn, right? Like if you're looking for a job, your potential employers 99.999% chance on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So are you building on top of that layer? Are you
No,
creating your
no,
own
we're looking.
attraction? Like how do you pull
Yeah.
from that like massive behemoth, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen instantly. You can't, what do they say? You can't eat an elephant in one bite, right? It's going to be bit by bit and brick by brick. But the hat we're changing, we're creating a better experience for both sides of the market. So number one is just it's a better experience, a better product. We're aligning incentives so that people actually get paid for their information. There's no better incentive in the entire world than getting paid. It drives every outcome and every decision we make. We actually did surveying, and we found that up to $200,000 of annual income a year, if you get a buy one get one free like lunch coupon, you're going to go spend it. You're going to go use it. Like incentives drive outcomes, right? And LinkedIn has misaligned incentives, and our incentives are aligned. You get paid to interact with organizations. People will love that. It's a new experience, but we also empower people by giving them the option to say no. I want to stay anonymous. I don't want to interact with this employer, and I'm going to deny them access to my data. So we both empower people and profit people. And those two things are completely different than how LinkedIn operates today. And we are also not going to be competing with LinkedIn for the social elements, right? LinkedIn does a good job with social elements, people sharing their career advice, or nowadays it's a lot of just AI stuff. But nonetheless, that's what LinkedIn does well. We're not a social platform. We are not competing in the attention economy. This is mostly going to be notification driven, and we want to win the notification battle. So we don't want to win your attention all day, but when a notification hits from LinkedIn, it's not going to be nearly as exciting as when a notification hits from My Standard because there's money and opportunity tied to it. right? So we're competing a little different way. We have a better service and a better product and a better quality, and now it's just about growing awareness and adoption of that for the user side, and as well for organizations. It's a better experience for a number of reasons for them. I can go into all those, but we're getting a
Where does
lot of
the money
employers.
come from, Adam? Where does the money come from?
The
Like,
employer side.
got it. Interesting.
Employers pay
Interesting.
for access to the platform. That money that they pay for to get access to the platform essentially gets distributed to the users.
Interesting. Cool. So I'm again, let's park it for a little bit. I'm
Yeah,
super excited to kind of go deeper into it. I've
for
got a lot
sure.
of questions. It's fascinating what you guys are doing. You know, obviously an interesting time to be doing it, right? Like there's a lot of talk about people being replaced by AI. In fact, this morning the interview I did was with a gentleman
Yep.
who is in similar kind of field where he helps engineers get placed from like Brazil into India, right? I mean, into sorry, Canada, into companies and whatnot. And he was saying how he's seeing a surge of employment, not like a decline, right? There's actually more demand, albeit a lot of it's from small and medium-sized businesses. But yeah, so interested in like kind of double clicking on this whole thing. But take us back. What does like before any of this? What was young Adam into?
How young are we talking? Like Diggers and
10,
Marvel
I don't know,
Comics?
formative years, 15.
Yeah, I mean, just
I don't know,
sports.
whatever, man.
My dad,
You
my
you
dad
pick.
was a top-ranked basketball player in Illinois,
No.
in high school, and he's like 6'5", and I
Oh
thought I'd be
wow.
the same as him. So I played, and he taught me basketball. So basketball was my entire life, basically, until freshman year of high school. Played basketball, was great, everything was going good, and then I stopped growing. So I ended up being 5'8" and stopped there, and everybody else kept going and getting stronger, and that's when I realized basketball was not my future. And basically since then I've just been a pretty avid golfer, because this golf doesn't matter how tall you are to play golf, and that's why I chose that sport, to be honest. Is I was like, well, I want to stay in athletics and compete, but I needed to find something that worked with my limited stature compared to my father. So golf was
So
it.
what did you think you'd be when you grew up, a professional golfer?
No, no, I started too late to be ever think I'd become a professional golfer, to be honest. But I kind of actually what started me. I thought I'd be in marketing, to be honest. I had an uncle who was at a marketing firm that did all the Chicago Bulls marketing. We were in the Chicago area at the time, and so I thought, he got to be with the team and go to the stadium, and they had a really cool office, and I was like, that's what I want to do, because basketball's still my favorite sport to watch, even though golf's my favorite sport to play. Actually, I think still basketball's my favorite sport to play, but I just shoot around. I can't like compete. But golf I can compete in, so I play a lot more of that. But yeah, I thought I'd be in marketing, and kind of went from marketing into more like sales and consulting and things like that.
How'd you first land in kind of like the talent and hiring world?
Yeah, just after college, needed a job, applied to positions. I found one that had a huge marketing arm to him, and I thought I would just start in marketing. And in order to get in the marketing department over there, you have to start in sales. So I was like, all right, I'll do sales for a little bit and then jump over to marketing. I happened to be pretty good at sales. It worked out well. And then when I saw the pay cut that I'd be taking to go to the marketing side, I stayed in the sales track there for about 10, 11 years. And then continued to have success there, and then kind of went into more of a consulting role in the space. But I was always in talent acquisition. That company was careerbuilder.com, which at the time was like taking over Monster, and just everywhere we had Super Bowl commercials, and CareerBuilder was you know a, a name of company that everybody knew, right? And I think the marketing and the growth I was part of all that, and it was a really exciting time. Um, Still have great relationships with all the people who I worked with at the time. Back then, it was a long time ago, and we all stayed close, all these years later, because it was such a family kind of, like, we were all really on a mission together, and we felt that, right? And we really felt that, and I take a lot of that learning, right, and those experiences of how we want to build this company. Um, when we get to those points.
So you spent years selling these like recruiting tools that you never actually use yourself, right? So what did that teach you?
Yeah, I think. Well, I just learned to like all the issues that companies were having. I was the shoulder to cry on for a lot of leaders at companies when there's a talent issue that came up, and they ranged from staffing agency spend to losing talent to a competitor to, are we tooled the right way for what we're trying to accomplish? I learned everything. Like, so that those roles I was in, especially when I moved to like more of the consulting role at the Fortune 50 companies, really kind of gave me the perspective that I needed to feel the weight and gravity of the problems that were going on, and that eventually turned into what my standard turned into. So we were problem solving when we started this company from day one. And I think that those consulting years really helped solidify that like these problems are out there, nobody's fixing them, they're reoccurring. And Yeah, so we kind of fell into a solution.
So what what was the first thing about, these Fortune 500 hiring that, started to bug you?
The first and biggest, most consistent thing was always staffing agency spend. It's like we were spending, Fortune 50 companies and up spend millions of dollars on talent acquisition teams, tooling, and with all that effort they were making, millions of dollars in LinkedIn spend, especially with how much of a bully LinkedIn was with how they negotiate their contracts with companies because they were the top dog. So it was kind of just like, here's the deal. We don't negotiate next year. It's 15% more, and you have to take it. And that's just how they were negotiating. Companies are still doing all that and spending on top of that with staffing agencies. And hiring managers would rather go to staffing agencies directly than go through the talent acquisition team because of how much time it took. Right. So the issues were like the time per hire was the number one metric that companies were focused on, because if they could shorten the time per hire, then they would be utilized internally at the time per hire, then they would be utilized more instead of the staffing agencies. Because what is a staffing agency? It's essentially a vetted candidate. It's delivered with speed. But the cost is enormous. It's like 30% plus of the person's first year salary. And on the like executive recruiting side, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars to land a single hire. And it just doesn't make sense. Like it's a waste, right? And that's on top of all the spend in staff and team and tooling, right? That's already being done. So if we could create a platform, which we believe we have, which delivers the speed of a staffing firm at the cost of like a LinkedIn license, that's a home run. And it's never been done before.
Wozers. Cool. So that's really, really interesting. The talent, tech labs, career builder, the sales seat. Which skill from those years matter most today?
Huh, that's an interesting question. I think like the career builder sales days, like the early scrappy sales days, trying to make things happen from nothing, really help with like a startup life because you're raising capital. Oftentimes, you got to create pitch decks, you got to sell the dream. Before things are built. Like there's a lot of that. I think that really played well into my strengths from those early formative sales years. The consulting years, I think, helped formulate the solution and be able to talk confidently around like we're actually solving a problem here that we're seeing consistently, or multiple problems that we're seeing consistently from this background I have and all these clients that I have worked with. So I think that they're all very helpful in different facets of what we're doing here. I never got my MBA. Just like getting your street MBA, you have to learn about a lot of things that you probably would have learned about in those MBA years. My godfather is a very successful person. He says that the street MBA is worth far more valuable than a real MBA. Learning it when you're in the middle of it in the seat. I tend to I tend to buy into that, right? The amount of stuff that I've learned. I wish I could go back and redo over the last 5 years because of just wisdom accumulated over time is enormous. I think the sales helps. I think if a founder has sales experience, they'll be able to raise capital. But you need that consulting and experience to really know that you're solving a problem. And I think that's a problem I see with a lot of founders is you guys have great ideas, but you actually haven't had the experience to know that those ideas are going to solve problems because you haven't had the wealth of experience in the field, right? To understand the gravity of that issue. And is it long term? Is it short term? Is it just with a few companies? Was it with everybody? And I think that wisdom comes from the experience. And myself and my co-founder had, we aren't some 20-year-olds trying to start a tech company out of college. Like we had a lot of professional experience that accumulated that wisdom before we started this thing.
Who's Chainlink God and how did he pull you into this space?
Yeah, Chainlink got who's now he's now doxxed. He doxed himself years after we met him though. Zach, he's basically like he's important to my like story in crypto as a whole because I found Chainlink, which is a wonderful protocol company in Web3 who's trying to do some big things. I found them pretty early, but I didn't have any confidence in what they actually could do because I didn't know the space that well. And naturally with any crypto, especially back in like 2017. There's a lot of like FUD. People just make up stuff. People say stuff. People, maybe trying to get a lower price. Who knows? So he actually was just like a confident person who understood what they're trying to do and who they are. And very early on, he'd answer my questions. He is probably the number one influential person with Chainlink. I don't know how many people follow him now, but probably like close to 200,000 people following him across X. And he's a very respected and active person. And now he's actually a team member at Chainlink. I don't think he was back then, but he is now on like community relations or something along those lines. He knows everything about him, and he and I have stayed close. And he actually became an advisor for us, after we formulated the company and heard what we were trying to do. And that was great that he would, it's kind of full circle, right? This person who kind of was very kind for no reason, answered your questions and took you under their wing essentially on Chainlink and gave you the confidence to keep investing, keep holding, keep growing your relationship with Chainlink, would eventually kind of come around and help us out to grow my standard, probably like 3 years later, 4 years later. So yeah, that was cool how everything kind of came full circle. And then he was still doxxed at the time, so we couldn't really announce like him personally doing it because you could kind of find out who he is. But then he came out and doxed himself, and um, I think like maybe 2 years ago or so. But yeah, that's kind of a full circle of just like just kindness, pay it forward. He didn't have to do that at the time. It helped me out a lot in my life, and I make sure that if somebody has questions around things, I do the same thing that he did to me back then. I never on a high horse that I can't answer somebody's questions. Take the time and they'll pay it forward in other ways.
What was the first moment Web3 actually clicked for you?
Just Chainlink, to be honest. I was dealing with some issues with I think this was a long time ago, but it was like a billing issue I was having with a company or a client at the time. And I learned what smart contracts were, and it was essentially like if you could put a certain set of conditions out there that if X, Y, and Z are hit, the payments are released automatically. Then like payment systems and accounts receivable could be automated essentially. And I was like, whoa, that's cool, right? If we could do that, we could do a lot of other things. And that it clicked very quickly for me that this is an exciting piece of technology. I never bought Bitcoin like early on. I like everybody else, we heard about it very early and saw it very early. I didn't you know didn't jump on that, but Chainlink, that made sense to me. Smart contracts made sense to me of like how that could be adopted. um, and so that's how I kind of like moved into that side. So it's more like the automation technology efficiencies of smart contracts that drew me in, not like the data ownership, ideals of Bitcoin, or value
Mm,
ownership of the ideals of Bitcoin. That's not what drew me in.
fascinating, super cool. So when did you realize the data problem in hiring was essentially a Web3 problem?
Just when we try to create the concept of data ownership, the only way to do that was to have the data owner be the person who has the keys to their data, and it can't be sitting all on our Web2 server. If all your data is sitting, but we see it day in day out, right? With centralized problems or centralized servers cause centralized problems. Our data has been leaked and hacked and exploited on a number of occasions. No matter how hard companies try to safeguard our data, it gets leaked. I think Equifax had a leak of our social security information. I mean, like even the most secure, largest, most trusted companies, if your data is sitting on a centralized server, I think at some point it's at risk, no matter what they do. LinkedIn's had a number of exploits over the years. I can't think of a major company that hasn't, right? And you get scammed. Like every time that you get a call, it says scam. Thankfully, the phone companies tag them now. But every time you get a company, that's them buying a list or going on the dark web and buying your email and contacting you and pretending to be somebody because they found your information. So they like, if I Google's like the hack that Google had made it so that people like myself get calls from a fake Google representative because they know that I'm a Google customer or a Google user because they got the data from there, and they have my phone number. Like it's ridiculous. So like we just needed to create like a safeguarded, your data isn't with us, it's with you. You're the only person who can share it, and the only architecture that could create that true data ownership is a Web3 architecture. Um, so
When
that
did you get into Web3?
2017.
2017. Hey man, I was gonna ask you a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this news, but the SEC has officially designated Bitcoin and crypto as a key focus in its new 5-year playbook.
Yeah.
Like, would you have ever imagined in 2017 that like this level of adoption would ever occur this quickly? I mean, I'm obviously delighted, but
No, no. I mean, I'm like, I'm still like on the fence of regulation. You know,
right?
it's like. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. Honestly, we got a podcast
Mm,
about that by itself. But like, no, I never would have thought that we would get the sort of political support. But I also don't know if that political support is good or bad. Like, I'm on the fence on
mm,
that. You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole debate. But I never thought, you know, that it would be adopted at this level. I thought it'd be more like I said, I always thought of this as technology, right? Like technology first, investment second. It's almost like like so if you think of it from my angle, right? I thought, well, yeah, the technology is going to be adopted by everybody because it's a more efficient system. And once a company gains efficiencies on another company, that company needs to do it too, right?
mm.
You're not going to look at your competitor across the street saving 20% on their staff and 30 and getting 30% faster accounts receivables because of smart contracts and not go do it too, right? So like I always thought, if we think of it as a piece of technology that creates more aligned incentives and efficiencies, it's eventually going to be adopted everywhere. um that's my perspective, right?
Hmm.
So I'm a utility maxi, I guess you can call it. So no, I always thought like we didn't need political support for that, right? I don't need the government sign off to run technology in my company a certain way, right? So
Yeah.
like I never like the political stuff wasn't really like a necessary angle, right, for me to
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
yeah.
Web3
No,
would be adopted and smart contracts would be adopted. I have a weird perspective on how I got here, and so like when I see these political stuff, I always think it's just for show. Like I don't think it really matters. It's kind of just like
mm,
this stuff would have been adopted anyway. So like this is just for like the glitz and glamour of it. It's not actually going to move the needle on adoption. We need use cases like my
mm,
standard. We need smart contract integration and accounts receivables. We need that. That's what creates adoption. That's what makes this whole space worth trillions of dollars. And it's going to hit a hard cap of people who are not okay with gambling. Like essentially, this is just a gambling big casino right now. It is. Not my view, right? But the view of the majority of crypto is a big casino. There's a certain threshold of people who have risk tolerances to do this kind of stuff. We hit that cap, and we may already be close to it now. It's not going to grow much faster than that, and that's why crypto has the issues it has. If we think of it more as a piece of technology with aligned incentives that can create efficient marketplaces and efficiencies in businesses, I think startups are going to change how they operate. I think their time horizons will be a little different of how the space moves, and we can have some significant growth in Web3. So that's my spot. That's it.
so just to go back to, I guess, what you're building. So you said that you'll never forget seeing the proof of concept work, right? So what happened in that moment when it
Yeah.
started working?
No, I mean we've had these like sort of aha moments along the way. Like I got to see the baby, like hearing about it's like you hear that the wife's pregnant, and then you see the baby born, and then you see the baby crawl, and that whole evolution. It's like I got to see all that real time. I think what's really cool is when we demo it for somebody like live side by side. Excuse me, and I'm on like my computer, and I send somebody a data request, and their phone instantly beeps next to me, and it says like this job is available to you. Do you want to share your information with this company? And they say yes, and they could see. I can actually show the back end of how like as soon as they click yes, like the payments, like the data is transferred on. The payment transfer happens first. How that whole system is automated. You can show on chain where the payment lands in that wallet for the user. As soon as that transaction settles and the data is shared and it populates on the recruiter screen instantly, and it all happens instantaneously. It's so cool. And then everyone's always like, wow, it's like going through that experience and that demo really is an aha moment for like anybody who's with me. And I've had that experience dozens of times, and I'm always like, well, now they can see it, now they can feel it, and they're ours for life, right? And that's the aha moments that really really hit, because all the rest of it I have seen progressively happen slowly over time.
So three big problems, right? Data exposure, wasted data, and staffing fees. Which one essentially hit you first?
Actually, the first one wasn't any of those three. It was
Oh, okay.
equal opportunity hiring. So I was working with an organization who they were in trouble with the EEOC because of a violation where a hiring manager wasn't hiring a certain type of skin color individual, and they got caught for it, and that happens, and they get fined, and it can be public, and it can be very bad for them. So to mitigate that risk, they were trying to figure out what solutions could help with equal opportunity hiring and essentially get rid of bias. You can't get rid of bias, but what we did is we created a platform where the employers don't get to see anything about an individual that could be induce bias until after they pay that candidate for their data. The data is shared, and there's this public record of their interaction, right? So what we did is we moved the bias point downstream, because right now LinkedIn, you see their face, you see their name, you see where they went to school. It's right in front of you. If you don't want to call that person, even if they're qualified for the role, you don't have to, right? It allows organizations to essentially do that. With my standard, you don't get to see the name or the face or the individual's information until after they agree to share it because they're fit for the job. So we moved bias downfield. And then when there's a moment when you actually could show bias on that individual, we have a public spotlight on that moment, right? Which is the on-chain record of the interaction. So organizations are going to have to follow up with everybody they get data from on my standard, because just like an application to a job, they have to follow up with everybody. But now there's this sort of like publicness around like we got to do it. We can't not call this person back. And obviously, it's a lot easier to build a case against a company who's showing bias when there's a public record. So yeah, we did this. We changed our model around to make sure that bias is taken into account, right? And that you can still get found for your dream job no matter what the color of your skin or anything like that. We got an investment from Gangels because of Gangels' passion for the LGBTQ community, being able to help them fairly find a job, right? So it's not like on my standard, you can't like look up the person's name and go look at their Instagram profile and make judgments about them. You don't get to know any of that information until there's already been a provable match that like this person is the person who's fit for your job. And that was the first problem that started the my standard concept of like using zero knowledge proofs to essentially prove to a company the person is a perfect individual for the job, but you don't get to see all those details until the individual shares them.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
what made you bet your career on this instead of staying safe? I don't know, in like a safe sales seat.
We had a. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, so it's not like I really desired to move out of something that was very cozy and comfortable to my standard. But the opportunity was there. We knew we had a problem that was no one else solving. I talked to a lot of trusted individuals in the space, people who were far further along in talent acquisition and knowledge and know-how than me, that this is something that could be exciting. So they kind of gave me that validation early on, and then Avalanche heard what we were doing, um, and essentially eventually wanted to invest in it. Right, and the Avalanche wanted to be our first check to have us build on the Avalanche blockchain. They wanted something that could create a lot of network effects. For their blockchain. And obviously, if we get to the point where there's billions of interactions and people on the platform, it very quickly becomes the biggest, network effect engine for all of Avalanche, or maybe even crypto as a whole, right? So they believed in the vision of what we're creating, and it gave us that first check, and that kind of validated us to investors, and we were able to raise capital quickly, and then off we go. And been doing it since then, since 2021.
So, I guess give it to me straight, right? So, what does my standard actually do for someone looking for a job?
Yeah, we just make it so that if there's a job out there that you're a fit for, you won't miss out on it. You'll get a notification that somebody's looking for somebody like you, and then you get the choice of interacting with them or not. If you want to share your data, you get paid. And it's not a negligible amount of money. It could be up to $23 for sharing your information with an employer. Or you could say, no, I don't want to make $23, but I also don't want them to know who I am, and keep my phone numbers and everything private, and deny them access to my data. And so you can make sizable money on the platform, but at the same time you get control and autonomy to say no. If you're really happy with your job, you could just interact with employers and collect checks, right? And that they're fine with that because they get valid information from a person who's a perfect fit for their job. They can call that person whenever they want and try to sell them on an opportunity. And recruiters can go to work on what they love doing most, which is selling the dream and convincing someone to come over. That's what recruiters love doing. They don't like sourcing databases. And so we get them to that relationship building moment a lot faster. And so this allows candidates to be matched for jobs they would not have normally found, and develop relationships with employers they normally wouldn't have seen, and get paid for interacting.
Super cool. So I guess companies paying users for their data. Can you walk me through why that essentially flips the whole model?
Well, right now companies are paying for data, but they're paying LinkedIn for data, or they're paying Indeed for data, and so we're just that money doesn't speed up, right, the time it takes for me to respond to an employer. If you get an email on LinkedIn today, you're most likely going to ignore it. So by passing that data, that value directly through to the user, users are incentivized to respond quickly. Also, employers can put a time limit on how long that reward is available for. So not only can I get a data request from an employer, but if it says like IBM is interested in you for your data about this job, you have 1 hour to respond, you make $23. Like, sense of urgency's there. I don't want to lose on the value. I may be interested in the job. I don't want to lose on the job. I have an hour to respond. Let me do this now. As opposed to like an in-mail where it's like, maybe I'll respond. Maybe I won't. 3 months later, maybe I'll get back to that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, we create some urgency by kind of gamifying it with this idea of getting paid for your data and doing it quickly. And that just doesn't exist anywhere. So like it's a really inefficient place to find a job on like a LinkedIn today. It takes a lot of time for both sides, and we're creating this like hyper efficient marketplace where people want to respond fast because they don't want to lose out. So that's one reason. And also, I want to add that like by adding a payment layer here, this payment layer, the job's real, right? There's no ghost jobs on my standard. No one's going to put up hundreds of fake job posts on my standard to collect resume information, which is totally what happens today, because of they have to pay for it, right? And that it's capitally inefficient to do that. You could apply to so many jobs on LinkedIn today. I don't know the number. I should probably know the number off the top of my head, but there's a number of ghost jobs out there. They're not real. They're just resume farming to put in AI models, stuff like that. It's all a mess.
Mm,
It's a mess.
mm.
So, you're wasting people's time, not on my standard. Your time will never be wasted. They're real jobs every single time you get one.
So ghost jobs, bias, recruiter fees. You're hitting all three, right? So can you kind of talk about
Yep.
where's the real edge, or where's the real wedge, rather?
Well, it depends who we're talking to, but for employers, the wedge is the idea that they don't have to spend a lot of time to get a lot of value out of my standard. They launch their data request out there. We're going to do the incentive structure to get people to respond quickly. When people respond, they can come back to the database, look at who that individual is, give them a call. Like, it's highly inefficient today to use a LinkedIn or Indeed license. You're spending 4 to 6 hours a day looking at the database, sending out emails, not hearing back, beating your head against the wall. IBM has a whole farm team in India, which is just like sending out emails and LinkedIn all day long, right? Hoping to get somebody on the phone and then pass them through to the person who actually builds the relationship with that candidate. So the amount of waste in talent acquisition is ridiculous because of the inefficiency of these systems. I also want to note, like, the inefficiency is not going away. LinkedIn and all advertising, anybody that's relying on a traditional advertising model, they need an efficiency to create revenue. The more inefficient the system is, the more you have to do on there, the more you have to spread yourself out, and the more money they make. Think of like commercials, like on TV, right? They have to advertise to everybody on a commercial to get to the 5 people who will buy the product. What if they could just get to the 5 people who buy the product, pay them to interact, and close the deal right there? Right? It changes the game on everything when you create a capitally efficient marketplace. And we're doing talent acquisition. Like I said, we're going to do it in all sorts of markets. Advertising is one of them. We're just not starting there. We're starting off in this job finding talent acquisition play, and we'll be expanding out.
It's fascinating. Truckers, students, even groups like the NAACP, right? So how do you decide who to onboard next?
Well, Truckers is going to be our first real go to market, like marketed and put together like a very professional program. In the coming months, you'll be seeing us. If you're in the Chicago market, you'll be seeing My Standard. I imagine we get a couple billboards for drivers just to kind of like put. That's a great place to find them and get eyeballs. But we're doing a lot of digital marketing and media as well to get user adoption, seed the marketplace essentially for truckers. We already have support from major trucking organizations for what we created because truckers' data is highly abused. These people are on the go, they're hard to pin down. Everything about our solution speaks to what truckers and trucker recruitment needs. And we're a for good of the life of the trucker type of program, right? Everything else is looking to abuse that truckers' data or get more out of them or get them to change jobs more frequently because they make more money and people like My Standard isn't about any of that. We're there for the good of the life of the truck driver. And this is a underserved marketplace. There's only a few companies who are trying to help truckers find jobs, and most of those are data abusers as well, right? So we're getting a lot of support from the trucking community, trucking leadership on launching this program in Chicago, and I imagine that this will be a massive success for us, and allow us to then legitimize the model in a specific area with a very specific role, and then start to do it in more markets and more types of roles. I think Facebook did a good job expanding. They did it like, remember, there's like a few targeted universities at a time. They learned from each one and then changed their platform around and then went to a few more, and validated university by university before expanding to their globalness. I imagine we do something similar here, because we are changing behaviors in some ways, and it's a new type of concept. So we need to test the waters and scale out. And this Chicago market is a perfect opportunity for us for truckers. We are also doing some work for students and entrepreneurs. Sorry, students and internships. We haven't expanded on that program yet, but we did start it. We actually are hiring our own intern at My Standard, a marketing intern through our platform, which is a job posted to My Standard site if you're interested. And we haven't closed on that yet. And then yeah, so we're going to be doing something with I think Avalanche on helping them find interns and some professional hires as well. So we're going to be kind of towing the water on some other things on the side, but this trucker thing is really going to be like a go to market that we hit hard, in a very meaningful way.
You talked about the grant, but why build on Avalanche? And what does the mice token actually do inside the system?
Yeah. Great question. So Avalanche, first off, for a number of reasons, Avalanche is a great place to build. Piece of technology works great, no downtime, extremely fast time to finality. We get transactions that close quickly. We wanted this to feel like a Web2 platform, so everything needed to happen instantaneously. And Avalanche really allows that. Avalanche's roadmap, too, at the time, also was a fit for our tokenomics and how our token growth is going to happen. Eventually, My Standard is going to launch a layer 1 on Avalanche. We knew about that a long time ago that they were going to be doing this. They used to call them subnets. Now they call them layer 1s. But that is exactly where we need to be because we eventually want to be a data market where other data markets can be built. The MIST token is going to be the front center of all that, of all the interactions on this marketplace and the incentive structure to validate the chain, validate data, validate the data transactions, etc. This token is used right now on the platform as well as the incentive for people to share their information. It's also going to be an incentive for employers to validate information on people. So we want to get employers to also feel like network participants. By validating information on the previous employers, they're going to receive MIST tokens for them. That's not a value, it's just data requests. So they're going to receive free data requests on user information by partaking and becoming, network participants and validating information on candidates. So if you think about like Uber runs itself by like the trust score. So like by getting employers to participate in validating also the interactions, like this person did interact, they were very professional, they were great. It improves that person's trust score. We can reward both parties, right, with the MIST token to say, hey, thanks for being a great user on the platform and sharing information and interact with that employer. And also employer, thanks for validating that user interaction. They both get some missed rewards for doing so. For people, those rewards can turn into cash value, but they could also turn into new functions and features that we're going to roll out into the platform. For employers, the tokens they receive are just turning into free candidate flow. And if you tell a recruiter today that they could do actions on a platform and get free candidates, they are going to love you. You don't get free stuff in talent acquisition. Everything is take. So now that recruiter is almost like a profit center. for the organization by like going through and interacting and becoming a bigger network participant with my standard. They're essentially getting like padding their budget with free candidate flow from doing so. And they're never going to leave then, right? How sticky is that? Like they're getting free candidates and you know what I mean? Like all that, like they're never going to leave. So once we get employers like in love with these mechanisms and they feel like they're part of the network, it's kind of game over for our competitors.
Adam, how's it free again? Because if don't they have to pay for those like the
No,
$23 that I get or whatever?
it's not the candidates they receive from rewards like for becoming a network participant, those are free candidates. Now it's not enough to probably satiate their entire recruiting function, right? But if you have to hire 100 people, but you know that like every week you get 3 free requests on my standard because you're a network participant, you're gonna stick with my standard. You're getting free candidate flow from there, and you might juice it, right? You probably have to and add more capital to it. But yeah, that's the concept.
So the Winklevoss, IBM, Chainlink in your corner, what did getting them on board actually take?
The Winklevosses took just pitches, a number of conversations. It's just raising capital and talking about what we're going to do. I don't think the talent acquisition use case was necessarily the most enchanting, but talking around like, hey, we could take on Facebook in the advertising model with this sort of model, like all these other use cases might have been more exciting to them. But still, like they're OGs in crypto. They believed in Bitcoin very early in a significant way, and the idea of ownership of value has been one of the reasons why they invested in Bitcoin the way they did. And likewise, that's why they invested in us. The idea of ownership of data is important to the Winklevoss family. And IBM was a previous client, so I just needed to basically talk to them, tell them what I'm doing. They were very excited to help out. And one of the IBM leaders at the time joined our board of directors very early to help us guide us. So we had IBM in our corner to help us build our software very, very early. I'm not sure who the third one is you mentioned, but those are
Chainlink?
Chainlink, they just they're always looking to hear what other people are building in the space and how we could use the Chainlink tech stack within our platform. So there's a number of things we will be doing with Chainlink within my standard. They actually helped us with our token contract to make it multi-chain. So we are also on ETH as well as on Avalanche, and we will be moving to Base as well at some point in the near future. We are also going to be doing a network Chainlink price feeds in the app, so people know what their value is real time, as well as helping employers understand how many data requests they get real time. And then we'll be able to do a more exciting thing with Chainlink will be when we start to develop. We haven't developed it yet. The credentialing engine. So the idea that a university can log in and mint. That Adam went to Bradley University to my profile, but it kind of comes from off-chain sources through an Oracle network validating that Adam did this, and then it puts it into my standard profile, and that will come through a Chainlink Oracle
Such
system.
a big idea. Such a big idea. Cool, man. This is, I mean, it does. I mean, anybody who's gotten a job, which is everybody, knows how clunky and messed up and
finding a job feels like a job, so we should make that a little better.
Absolutely. Cool. So help me land the plane. 5 years out, who owns your professional data and what does hiring look like? And then also finish up with maybe your guys' company domain and where you're sharing all your thoughts, whether it be Twitter or elsewhere.
Yeah. So in 5 years now, I mean, we hope that we've convinced enough people that being the data owner of their data is the right way to do it. I think by that point, we'll be the black hole for all personal data. It'll be outside of just your professional information, but your people are going to want to put everything about themselves into this once they trust it. And that creates more earning opportunities for them in different segments and industries, everything from we have real estate use cases lined up. We have healthcare use cases lined up. We have obviously talent, credentialing, advertising. It hits on everything. It's a $1.3 trillion total addressable marketplace with personal data. And that doesn't even include AI LLMs, which also need to do human data validation, which is going to be an $800 billion marketplace in 5 years. So, we're really hitting on like a lot of themes that can be very exciting over the next few years as we grow. That's why we're so enchanted with what we do. And we think people like our network participants, you, me, and everybody else, are going to be equally as excited to make a profile and have the opportunity to be a true data owner for the first time. So that's how I see it.
Love it. Cool.
Socials are mostly on X. Mystandard.io, all spelled out, is our X. I'm mystandard_Adam. Perhaps we'll link the socials when we download this and post it, as well to yours as well, Sunny. Yeah, that's, I think, X is our main place. We also have a really vibrant Telegram community, who are consistently talking about what we're doing and excited around it. So, and that one is open to the public as well. That one is, on Telegram, t.me/mystandard.tg. So, find one of those and then get interactive with us, and we're happy to bring you in.
Perfect. Adam, hand back for 1 minute. Thank you all. This is probably my most popular live stream in a while. 72 people listening to us right now, Adam. This is crazy.
Thanks,
so thank
everybody.
you for your time, Adam. And thank you, all for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to bring this one to an end. Adam, give me a minute. 1 sec.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.